I've been working out for over a decade now, and there are still so many myths when it comes to lifting weights and nutrition. I want to talk about what are some of the most common myths that I still see in the industry, and I have evidence to help debunk these myths in this video. So let's jump into it. So the first myth that I want to jump into is that hunger is not necessarily indicative of a caloric surplus. In other words, what I'm saying is that just because you're hungry does not mean that you need to eat. Now, I'm not saying you need to starve yourself, but hunger is produced by the hormone ghrelin, and this hormone lets your body know that you're hungry. But what's been found is that ghrelin is actually more associated with your historical eating patterns than you actually needing energy. And so in other words, if I eat at 8 a.m. every single day, I'm going to feel hungry at 8 a.m. every day because my body is anticipating food at that time. In fact, there is a study published by the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. The researchers found that ghrelin levels typically rise about 1 to 2 hours before habitual meal times and decrease after meals. Importantly, this pattern was consistent regardless of the participant's caloric intake, indicating that ghrelin is tied to meal timing and not necessarily caloric need. And so often people might think, well, I'm hungry, I should eat. What do you want me to do? Starve myself? It might feel like that for the first 2 weeks, but once you adjust your eating patterns, then you'll start to feel hungry at the new times that you've been eating rather than the old times. And I think this gets into another topic that I don't want to dive into, which is satiation. If you're still feeling hungry, maybe you should look into higher or lower satiated food. So for example, potatoes are very high in satiation. If you eat a potato, you're going to feel very satisfied, where if I were to eat something like a croissant, I'm not going to feel as satisfied, even though they can be the same amount of calories. What is the correlation between how many calories I'm consuming to the satiation, how satisfied I feel from that meal? So if you're trying to lose weight, you want to find high satiating meals with low calories, and that way you feel satisfied, but you're able to stay in that caloric deficit. The second myth that I want to talk about is overtraining. You hear this all the time in the industry. Oh my God, you should be careful. You don't want to overtrain. If you work out too much and you don't get enough rest, you're going to overtrain. People get in the gym and they go, well, I don't want to push myself too hard because I don't want to overtrain. And then now all of a sudden I'm not making the progress that I want. And really, I think this is more or less an excuse to be lazy. 99% of you are never going to overtrain. You're not an athlete, you're not a Navy SEAL, you're not David Goggins, you're not going to overtrain. Overtraining is a term that gets thrown around a lot, especially in fitness circles, but the reality of it is often misunderstood. True overtraining is a condition where the body is pushed beyond its ability to recover. However, most people are unlikely to reach this state unless they're training at a high intensity without proper rest and nutrition over an extended period. For the average person, what they might consider overtraining is more often just overreaching, which is a short-term decrease in performance that can quickly be resolved with adequate rest. So this idea that you're overtraining, I think it's more of an excuse to be lazy in the gym. It's not something that you need to worry about. Myth number 3, which is kind of hand in hand with the last one, is that cardio will kill your gains. Again, I think this is an excuse for people not to do cardio because, oh, I don't want to lose my gains. I don't want to lose the muscle that I've built. All right, hold on. Let's take a pause right here. I initially thought that cardio wouldn't kill your gains, but after doing more research, I found that well, it might actually be killing your gains, but not as much as you probably think. The first is if you're doing cardio right before or after your weightlifting, there's a higher chance that you're going to quote unquote kill your gains, have less muscle development because you're not giving your muscles enough time to recover. If you can separate your cardio and your muscle training, then that's ideal. But of course, a lot of us can't do that. So what else can we do? Well, try to do lower intensity or moderate cardio than higher intensity. In other words, if you can run 5 miles versus walking, there's less of a chance from walking that you're going to kill your muscle growth from that workout. And then also the type of workout. They found that running had more of an effect on your muscle development than doing the bike machine. So the science isn't 100% clear on this. I'm still seeing a lot of conflicting information out there. More to come on this. I'm going to keep reading the literature on this and watching videos, but this one seems to have a bit of confliction in the industry. The last myth that I want to debunk here, which I actually have a reel on if you want to check that out, which is carbs are the culprit of weight gain. We know now from science that if you're in a caloric surplus, you will gain weight. If you're in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. And it doesn't matter where these calories are coming from, what macronutrients that they're coming from. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that macronutrient composition, so low carb versus low fat, had little effect on fat loss when calories were controlled, indicating that total caloric intake is the key factor. The study compared low carb and low fat diets in terms of fat loss and found that when calories were matched, there was no significant difference in fat loss outcomes. So this debunks that myth, right? You have two controlled groups which are both intaking the same amount of calories, but from different types of foods and nutrients. So one has a low carb diet, one has a low fat diet. They saw the same amount of fat loss as long as the caloric deficits were the same, right? This indicates that it doesn't matter where the food is coming from. If you are in a deficit, you're going to lose weight. So don't get so caught up on carbs and you're wondering, why am I not losing weight? I'm not eating carbs. Well, maybe you're in a surplus of proteins and fats. And so you just don't get caught up when it comes to carbs. Again, I have a whole reel on this that talks about it. Watch that. But this is a total myth. It's calories in, calories out. It's as simple as that. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know if I missed anything or if there's any topics that you'd like to hear more about. And I'll see you in the next video.